cooperation right from the early 60s right up to Prabhupada's last few months was very strong and was very much there. Okay? Now this is why Prabhupada, why the name Prabhupada. So as the movement was increasingly expanding and devotees, more books were being published, devotees were reading them, they became better able to understand the actual way of life, the philosophy and way of life that they were following. And they were becoming understanding how unique Prabhupada actually was. So, next one. And yeah, just as the Maha Mantra that we chant, it gradually reveals itself to those who properly chant. So the spiritual master also becomes revealed to the sincere disciples. Okay? So, this is one of Prabhupada's disciples speaking. Her name is Govinda Dasi, very famous Govinda Dasi, one of Prabhupada's first disciples. And she says, my husband decided one day that he wanted to call me Govindaji. So her name was Govinda, and as we know, we put that J-I in the end, and it's kind of like a cute sounding thing. So her husband decided she wanted to call her Govindaji. So he asked Prabhupada, was that okay? But Prabhupada said, no, actually G is a third class address. So, just to let you all know that, I don't know how many times I've called you Radha Landanishwara G, or, Japa G. I think I called you that today. My apologies, because it's actually a third class address. So then Govinda said, well, if it's a third class address, why are we calling you Swamiji? So that's what they've been calling Prabhupada the whole time. They've been calling him Swamiji. Okay? Srila Prabhupada said, it's not very important. But Govinda said, oh no, it's very important. We do not want to address you in a third class way. Please tell us what's a proper way to address you. And then Prabhupada said, well, Gurudev, Guru Maharaj, or Prabhupada. But that's three Prabhupada. Which one's best? And Prabhupada said, well, Prabhupada is nice, probably the best, like that. So then Govindaji said, from this day on, we will call you Prabhupada. She made that commitment that that's what she's going to do. Now, as you know, actually, the Hare Krishna movement is a very good place to be aware of that before you take initiation, you have a certain name. And you're Bhakta so-and-so or Bhaktin so-and-so. And then you take initiation and you get a completely new name. And for days, weeks, months, even with some people, maybe even into a year, when you see them, they still call you your old name. It's difficult to actually get used to the new name. So she made this determination. And she eventually achieved it, because now nobody calls Prabhupada Swamiji, we all call him Prabhupada. Why Founderacharya? This is quite rare. Aside from two obscure references, the only other reference we have, aside from those two, goes back to the original Vaishnava Sampradayas and the acharyas of those that you see there. Lakshmi, the Sri Sampradaya, the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Kumara Sampradaya. But they're prehistoric. They're again going back eons and eons and eons to this Founderacharya. But these are the two exceptions. One was in the Harmonist. The Harmonist was the continuation of the Sajani Toshani publication. And here we have, let's see where it gets into this. What does it say now? Oh yeah, sorry, the first line. Second line. The Gaudiya Math is also identical with its founder Acharya, and its founder Acharya being Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I won't read the rest of that. We go to the next one. And this is the other one. This is also in the Harmonist, 6 years later. There's a 6-year gap between these two. The Gaudiya Math is the instrument and counterpart of His Divine Grace Paramahamsa Paribhaj Acharya Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. He lives and moves and has its being in the founder Acharya. Okay? A week following this, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he left this world. So the term Founderacharya was only used twice, and the second time only a week before he departed, and thus it never took hold. It never became permanent or took hold like that. These are now why the title Founderacharya was suitable and consistent for Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he revived and reformed a weakened tradition, as we know, after Lord Chaitanya, who is no different than Krishna, as Krishna himself. But within a few hundred years of Lord Chaitanya departing the planet, Gaudiya Vaishnavism had effectively disappeared. It had effectively completely disappeared like that. But Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and of course Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they revived and reformed that tradition. Engendered a society, formed and pervaded in his own spirit, embodied the mood of the ancient and original Sampradaya-acharyas in delivering pure love of God to suffering humanity, countered impersonal monism, restored the true theistic Siddhanta, and spread that Siddhanta vigorously at Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. That was the essential message that Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was propagating. After he left this world, the Gaudiya Maths were deprived of being able to be the extension of that bestowal of grace. And the reason for that was there were complications after Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj left, and the Gaudiya Math became very ineffective, actually. It became very ineffective. So consequently, his servant, Srila Prabhupada, to be able to carry out the order of his spiritual master, he became the founder Acharya of ISKCON with the aim to have this movement fulfill that aspiration his master had for his Gaudiya Math. So again, the mood and the mission was to fulfill that instruction of his spiritual master. Okay? And will be with us forevermore as long as you, yes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta exceptionally propagated the synthesis of the four ancient Sampradaya Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, okay. And now we go into Srila Prabhupada. Material nature, the famous quotes now from Prabhupada. Material nature means dissension and disagreement. The Krishna consciousness movement's success will depend on agreement, even though there are varieties of engagements. In the material world there are varieties, but there is no agreement. In the spiritual world there are varieties, but there's also agreement. And that's a key difference for us to remember between the spiritual world and the material world. There is difference and there's variety, but it's not that the spiritual world, we're all robots and we're all, working on automatic. No, we're individuals and we have individual expressions and we have differences. But the only difference between the spiritual world and the material world is, in the material world it tends to lead to disagreement and conflict, whereas in the spiritual world it doesn't. So the materialist, without being able to adjust those varieties and the disagreements, makes everything zero. But if we keep Krishna in the center, then there will be agreement in these varieties. This is called unity and diversity. So this was Prabhupada's kind of thesis, the principle of unity and diversity, which was very similar to Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, which means simultaneously one and different. With all the GDC and senior men present, we should discuss how to make unity and diversity. So it's a big thing for Prabhupada. So please try to maintain this philosophy of unity and diversity. That will make our movement successful. Therefore, those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, they see that unity in diversity. Okay. Okay, now this relates to Srila Prabhupada being a worthy disciple. It's kind of a funny thing for us followers of Prabhupada to say in one sense, but it's just to emphasize the point how worthy a disciple he was of his spiritual master. This was in a talk he gave on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's disappearance day in Los Angeles in 1968. I was born in a different family. My Guru Maharaj was born in a different family. Who knew that I would come into his protection? So Prabhupada was just saying, we didn't know each other. We were born one place, born another place, but who knew? Who knew that I would come to America? Who knew that you American boys will come to me? This is all Krishna's arrangement. We cannot understand how things are taking place. So again, this is on the disappearance day of his spiritual master. And he says, in 1936, today, the 9th of December, 1968 in Bombay, I was doing some business. All of a sudden, perhaps on this date, I wrote a letter. My dear master, your other disciples, your brahmacharis, your sannyasis, they are rendering you direct service, and I am a simple householder. I cannot live with you, I cannot serve you nicely. So I do not know, how can I serve you? So this was a letter that Prabhupada wrote to Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj in 1936. A week or so later, he got a response. I am very glad to receive your letter. I think you should try to push on our movement in English. That will do good to you and to the people who will help you. Go ahead. Then on the 31st of December 1936, just after writing that letter, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj passed away. So we're talking, what is that? We're talking sort of less than 20 days. So less than 20 days before his spiritual master left, his spiritual master gave Prabhupada that instruction. One sentence, I think you should go and spread in the English-speaking world. It wasn't a constant thing that his spiritual master told him many times, or that they met and talked about it. It was just one letter, and then 20 days or so later he passed away. But I took that order of my spiritual master very seriously. If we strictly try to serve the spiritual master, his order, then Krishna will give us all facilities. So we should try to carry out the instruction, the specific instruction of the spiritual master, very rigidly, without caring for our personal benefit or loss. So I tried to do a little bit, this is back now to the talk he's giving in 1968 in Los Angeles on his spiritual master's disappearance day. So I tried a little bit in that spirit. So he has given me all facilities to serve him. Things have come to this stage that in this old age I have come to your country. You are also taking this movement seriously, trying to understand it. We've got so many books now, so there's a little foothold for this movement. Okay? So on this occasion of my spiritual master's departure, I'm trying to execute. Yeah, we keep going. And again. Next one. Yeah. So on this occasion of my spiritual master's departure, I'm trying to execute his will. Similarly, I shall also request you to execute the same order through my will. And now we go on to Srila Prabhupada's will. But I just want a real short comment on that. The whole point of that was that Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 70, as we've already spoken, came on his own on that boat. And now, 50 years later, ISKCON has something like 720 centers around the world. 720, and growing like that. And the amount of books, I think we were figuring out the amount of books that have been distributed just in the UK in the last 47 years. I think we worked out was about 15 million, so that's just in one country. So hundreds of millions of books have been distributed. It all came from Prabhupada getting that letter from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj 3 weeks before Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj left his body, saying, I think you should go and try to spread this movement in the English-speaking world. So Prabhupada is now speaking to his disciples and saying, never think there's any limitation on what we can achieve on behalf of Krishna. Krishna is unlimited like that. So as long as we're just sincerely trying to serve our spiritual master, serve Srila Prabhupada, then it's unlimited what can be achieved. So that was the point that Prabhupada was making. So Prabhupada said, if you execute my will. Now, this goes on, you may remember the slide that was showing the 5 key aspects to ISKCON. So the 4th one was the establishing of the Governing Body Commission. So this is the first item in Srila Prabhupada's will. The Governing Body Commission, GBC, will be the ultimate managing authority of the entire international society for Krishna consciousness. So that's the first item in Prabhupada's will.